Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Justin Ryan here with the Spatial Insider, and we've got an exciting episode for you today. You've probably seen the viral headlines about a surgeon that used Apple Vision Pro to perform cataract eye surgery. We're not talking about a demo or a concept. This is real surgery with real patients. Today, you're going to meet Dr. Eric Rosenberg, a cornea, cataract, and refractive eye surgeon at SightMD and co-founder of ScopeXR. I'll also introduce you to the development team, Michael Simmons and Justin Kent. I've been told that they are legendary iOS and visionOS developers. These three came together, built something called ScopeXR, and put a Vision Pro in the operating room. And in today's episode, we'll get into all of it. The story behind it, what the experience is like as a surgeon wearing the Vision Pro, what this unlocks for patients and doctors, and where spatial computing is headed next. With that said, let's start with introductions. Eric?
Well, Justin, thank you for having us here. And, I personally am a huge fan of your platform and everything that is Apple Vision Pro. A little bit about me, Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of ScopeXR. I'm also a cornea, cataract, and refractive surgeon at SightMD, where I do a lot of the complex cataract surgery and other difficult surgeries that come my way. And it's something that I've been very passionate about my entire career. I also hold Associate Professor of Ophthalmology at New York Medical College, where I'm actively involved in resident teaching, and I really love the educational component of the medical field.
So grateful to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us, and what an impressive background. We'll then jump to Michael, and then we'll jump to the other Justin here. So Michael.
Thanks for having us, Justin. Yeah, Michael Simmons. Been making apps, software, platforms, and tools for a really long time now. It's funny because when I started, I'd always say, I've been doing this for a few years. And then, hey, 10 years. And then, I've been doing this for pretty much over 30 years now, which sounds insane, but it's true. But I'm really proud of it looking back, because what I've always built was good experiences that make people's lives better. And besides the other companies that I've built and other products that I've built, what I'm really most excited about with ScopeXR is I'm really excited about the Apple Vision Pro. And when we get into it later, I'll tell you a funny story about how Eric and I met. But Apple Vision Pro unlocks not only a different way of viewing and interacting with your data, your computing, whatever, but it also enables things like the ability for surgeons to make better outcomes, have better outcomes with their patients. So yeah, basically my whole career, I've been making really great experiences, and to be able to build something like this that actually helps people with their health is just really rewarding. So thanks for having us on and being able to talk about this today.
What an impressive background for you as well, and excited to talk more about the development of ScopeXR. Justin, let's turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Justin. Happy to be here. Love your channel. I'm at MIT CS trained, been working on iOS since day one, before it was even iOS. Launched over 40 apps to the app stores. Deep dive into all the Apple platforms, Xcode, and love the idea of making apps that can change the world and have a real impact in people's lives.
Okay, I feel like I'm meeting with the A team here. Lots of apps, lots of experience.
We have a lot in common, all of us. Yeah.
I love it. So maybe let's start with this app or this experience, and who would like to tell that story?
Yeah, I'm going to take that one because it's sort of my fault that this happened. So big Apple Vision Pro fan. One of the things when I was going over my bio, which I'll mention now, I left out. I'm the creator and also the CEO of Flexibits, where we make Fantastical and Cardhop. If you're familiar with those, a very popular calendar and contacts apps. And we launched on the Apple Vision Pro when the Apple Vision Pro launched. So Apple had actually featured us prominently as having fully native calendar and contacts apps for the Apple Vision Pro. So anytime I saw stuff like your content, actually, I was following you from the beginning, or anyone posting anything on Vision Pro, I would always take note of it. Oh, that person gets it. That person's interested. Well, Eric was on LinkedIn, and someone that I knew had reposted something that he had shared with something that he was doing with spatial reality. So I thought it was cool. I saw he was in New York. I saw we had a mutual connection. I reached out to him. We connected. So he reaches out to me, and we were just chatting it up, whatever. And like, where do you live? And I'm like, in New York. He's like, and I live in New York. And then it's like, where do you live? On Long Island. And I live on Long Island. And which town? And it's literally, we live in the same town. We live literally blocks apart from each other. You couldn't have scripted this. It was literally insanity. And then I'm thinking, like, is this guy stalking me? Oh, wait, I was stalking him. So, but the short of it is, we became friends, didn't plan on making an app or a company together. We just started talking about just life and things and ideas. And ironically, he pitched the idea for ScopeXR to me, like, hey, it would be really cool if. And he wasn't telling me we should do it, but he was like, it would just be really cool if. And of course, I'm an idea guy. Like, I'm the visionary. I'm the one that likes to build this stuff and go, yeah, that's impossible. No, let's make it possible. So I started to think about it, and I sketched it out, and I had some ideas, and I told Eric it would work. And then At that point, I had known Justin for a while, so I had talked to him a bit about it, if I remember, if the timing serves me right. But I went back to Eric and said, "Yeah, I think we can build this." And then Eric was like, "Nah, I don't think it's going to work." He was kind of skeptical on it then, which was really weird because I'm like, "Dude, here's the path. We're building this." But then once I convinced him, I think what it was he really didn't believe it was possible because it is such a magical thing when you see it. I think I speak from when I say that. And long story short is we went and built it, and here we are.
What are the odds that you are both in the same town and both have
What are
this
the odds we're
passion
both in the
around
same
Vision
town
Pro?
and
Like that's
less than two
so
blocks
wild to
away
me.
from each other? Yeah.
Without
It
that
was meant to
is
be. If you believe in fate, it was meant to be.
I absolutely love that.
One thing I think you brought up, Justin, that was a really great point is all the right people at the right time came together to form what it is that you're seeing. And Michael is 100% right. There was times where, like, whether or not you think your idea is a great idea or whether it's like, a trash can idea and, if this is going to work. And what was funny is this idea was on the cusp of all the technology actually evolving in real time. So there were things that we didn't actually have yet that we didn't know that was going to be able to work. And again, as we push through it and as, Michael brought it to my attention that this is a good idea, we're going to make this work. All those pieces started falling into place, which actually brought this to the forefront. And it was really, really cool seeing that and being a part of that. It's evolving in front of you. And that's kind of how ScopeXR came into its origin story.
Yeah. So one of the things is because we're building with Apple, obviously we get all of the good stuff with Apple for free, be it the ability to have multiple windows at once or FaceTime someone in or have security and on and on and on. So the platform itself, Apple Vision Pro as a platform, is just a pleasure to develop for because we kind of come up with the ideas and most of the tools are there.
And another important thing is the gesture-based interface of the Vision Pro, the fact that you can interact with it in space. We can maintain the sterile field during surgery to do all types of things that wouldn't be possible otherwise. And it was just amazing the way this project evolved, because when we first started doing it, of course, latency is one of the most important things and one of the hardest things. We have multiple signal paths into the app. We have wireless, we have wired, we have video playback from a file, and all of this have to be optimized to have as real time as possible. Of course, the most real time is going to be a hard wire, a cable in. And at the time we started this project, that was not possible on the Vision Pro. There was the developer strap, but that video input, UVC input, was locked behind an enterprise entitlement, which when Vision OS 26 came out, that got opened up to the general populace. So all of a sudden we had a product that now everyone can use. So a lot of things just had to happen together on the technical side and the workflow side to make it feasible as a product.
All right. So I'd love to know the behind the scenes. So Eric, if you could maybe paint this picture for us as the physician, like, can you walk us through what that experience is like in the operation room?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, I'll start with a regular OR is, you're outside, you're scrubbing in, right? You're cleaning your hands, you scrub, you enter, the scrub tech greets you with a towel, you wipe your hands. Before even starting the case, you want to make sure that your digital microscope is set up appropriately in the room. Make sure that it's not behind the actual microscope. So one of the problems that we were having was the actual footprint of some of these 3D digital microscopes and the screens that they had. You want to make sure that it's in the most ergonomic position, so you're not tilting over, but you're just doing a little bit of a head turn, makes it a lot more comfortable. You're scrubbing in, and then you're using the oculars. Actually, when you do eye surgery, a lot of people don't realize this, but you're using all four limbs. I operate with both feet, and I operate with both hands, all the while being affixed to an analog microscope. So I have a 3-point fixation, if you want to think about that. I need to be at the level of the ground. I need to be at the level of the working distance where the patient's eye is. And then I need to actually have the oculars, and the oculars themselves have a working distance from the eyeball itself. So the working distance is very specific for any analog microscope. Now with digital microscopes, we're able to divorce ourselves from the analog oculars. So now I'm 2-point fixated, which is great. That's a lot more comfortable. And it was its own revolution that existed in the OR. The digital microscope is a huge step up in how we care for our patients, and being able to separate that means that, hey, if you're confined to a wheelchair, traditionally you would actually have to go under general anesthesia and go to the hospital in order to get your cataract surgery, because they'd have to Hoya lift you out and then put you in the operating bed, which is a specific bed for eyes, and then do the surgery in that position. With the digital microscope, that doesn't exist anymore because I can do the surgery right in the wheelchair itself. And that's because I'm not fixed to the oculars anymore. And I can put the working distance wherever it is, and I can put my pedals on either side, and then I have my working position for the eyeball itself. Now with the Apple Vision Pro, the entrance is a little bit different, right? So I actually don it even before starting the case and even before scrubbing. It has a battery pack. It lasts hours, right? And each cataract surgery is 5 to 10 minutes. So while I'm not using it, I leave it on the charger. When I do use it, take it right off. And I know I have more than enough time to be able to be hooked into the system. We have two solutions available. We have a wired and wireless. Walk out, scrub, walk back in, and the scrub tech dons my sterile gown and my gloves, and I'm ready to rumble. I open up my ScopeXR app while I sit down, and I can actually pull either a wired or wireless feed from the app. If it's wired, I have my circulator nurse actually just plug it right into the developer strap. That way I know that there's not going to be a loss of feed or anything. Our thinking was that a wired approach was going to be the single safest thing that we can do when going forward, because then we're not counting on Wi-Fi or any other approaches. We are hardwired into that microscope, and there's going to be no loss of signal when you're doing that. If it goes down, it's because your digital microscope failed. That has yet to happen. I've never seen it happen. I never want to see that happen. That's the goal, is to do it the safest possible way. Now, wireless has great options. It does, and there's high fidelity systems with low latency, and I'm very excited about our solution that we've developed for it, and I'm excited to see it in practice. We've already tested it. It works beautifully. But for the initial ones, we wanted to make sure that we took a very methodical approach to our patient care, and our patient priority as being number one. Entering into the OR, right, sitting down, you open up the Apple Vision Pro, you have all these options available to you. You can pull up the patient's, pre-operative metrics. I can bring in all the biometry, which is our eye-specific measurements from our office, and that comes in via the cloud. And that system already existed, right? So we're integrating it in. And I tell Michael and Justin this all the time. I like to call this the glue. We have a lot of digital solutions that exist for physicians, and we're finally coming to a point where all these things are starting to work together really nicely for the benefit of our patients. And I'm able to bring up the eyeball metrics. And why does that matter for a surgeon? Well, if you have a short eye, that's going to be a tougher case. You can prepare yourself, especially with special instruments. Traditionally, I was looking at a printed out sheet that existed on a Mayo tray in the corner of a room. And I'm like, oh, what was that axial length again? Or, what was that curvature? Where's the steep axis? I want to put my incision a little bit more over there. Now everything is fully integrated. I'm not looking away. It's why we have heads-up displays on all the new cars. The driver's eye should be on the road. The surgeon's eyes should be on the surgery. We should not be looking elsewhere, and having all these things up and ready to go for us. They may seem nominal, each one of them, but together it makes a world of difference. It gives you the confidence that you need when you're sitting down to be able to do the right things, to be able to have the right instruments, to be able to do the best surgery you could possibly do. And from there, if I'm getting into the weeds, or if I want to call one of my mentors who taught me how to do a certain procedure, or a certain thing, or, hey, have you ever seen this? How do you fix this particular problem if you're having it? You can do that like that. Again, the walls have exploded. The OR is not a single surgeon. It is a giant network, a collaborative team that's existing right now for us. And that part, Justin mentioned before, what was giving him the chills is being able to see the eyeball in true 3D. And that is definitely an amazing thing. The thing that gives me the chills is making sure that you have access as a surgeon that you didn't have before. I mean, it's just phenomenal. When somebody sees the eye for the first time, we have medical students and residents who come in all the time, and they're learning how to operate on a tiny little screen. And the assistant scope doesn't have stereopsis like the primary surgeon scope. So when we got over to the digital microscopes, great, more people in the room were able to see things in stereoscopic 3D. But now it's a different level.
If we're at the point where you can bring in your mentors, or you can bring in your consultant, or you can bring in your mentees, at what point does that become the new standard of care? Wouldn't you always want that available?
I love with the Vision Pro how you can bring in people easily, right, through a FaceTime call. You've got them floating on a window or personas, and it's just a magical experience in general. Again, if you haven't tried a spatial FaceTime call, you need to do it. But the thought of being able to bring in your mentors or students into the OR with you, it opens up so many doors. So thank you for sharing that. And Eric, thank you for walking me through that whole process. That was super insightful. I had no idea there was 3 points of fixation or different eyeballs had different heights. I'm learning so many things just from this interview in addition to the Vision Pro stuff. So that's huge. I am curious because when the news broke, a lot of the headlines make it sound like there's been one surgery that's been performed. But from what I gather, the first surgery was done months ago, and there's been quite a bit more surgeries done since then. How many surgeries have actually been performed?
To date, so in one of my ORs, I have a Bionics augmented reality digital microscope, which is what actually helped introduce me to Michael. And in the other room, I have an Ingenuity, and that Ingenuity is now attached to the Apple Vision Pro permanently. So I'd say hundreds is a pretty good estimate of how many cataract surgeries have been done. I prefer using this platform. The magnification, the depth of focus, the clarity, the digital overlays, the access to patient information, the collaborative approach if absolutely necessary. If I'm sitting down at that microscope, I want to bring the best of what that patient can have. And if I know that I have that Apple Vision Pro sitting right next to me and I'm not using it, I think it's doing a disservice at this point because I think it makes me better at my job. So, every single case that's done in that room now is done with the Apple Vision Pro, obviously under patient consents and IRB approvals. We have all of that lined up. And, we want to do this in a disciplined, very clear-cut, explanatory, real-world use that any surgeon could pick this up and start using it. But I mean, Justin and Michael have created something just utterly amazing.
You're asking about reception and demand, and Eric's got this list of doctors who want to try it out, and of course, the Vision Pro is an amazing product. But we're not really selling an app or a headset here. This is about elevating the standard of care. And so the patients, they might not be asking for ScopeXR. They might not want a Vision Pro themselves, but if they're having cataract surgery, they want their surgeon to have the best possible tools to make a flawless procedure. And that's what we're doing here.
And you all have created a very clear use case, but I'm curious of what the feedback has been, both from maybe those in the operation room and maybe other physicians.
Absolutely, Justin. The feedback's been phenomenal for a multitude of reasons. And there's many different ways to look at it. You can divide it into the physician front-facing component of this, the patient front-facing component, and then the systems-based operation component of it. If we'll start with the patient, because I think that's the most important. A lot of people who see me know that I'm heavily involved with research projects. My wife and my wife is director of clinical research at SiteMD. We run a lot of IRB studies. We run a lot of FDA studies. We have multiple phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 clinical trials going on in our offices at any time. And I honestly think that's a draw of our patient base. I think people like physicians that are trying to figure out what the future of medicine looks like, and continuing to push the boundaries of medicine for our patients, I think is really important because as technology evolves, so too does medicine and ophthalmology. And what drove me to ophthalmology, I actually started life as a general and trauma surgeon. And what drove me over to ophthalmology was that anytime there's an advancement on the technological forefront, ophthalmology always figured out ways to integrate it and evolve the field. And I think that was always super valuable and something that really drew me into the subspecialty. Now, when it comes down to our patients, they're really excited. I sit there and I tell them in the office, I consent them for videography. I consent them for, the technology that we're using if they're enrolled in any IRB study. I think the most important thing is that patient-physician, conversation. And what we've seen, especially with electronic health records over the years, is actually a displacement that has existed. There's actually a fork between physicians and patients now. And I'm trying my best to kind of bridge that gap. So when I sit down and talk with patients, it's a very multimodal, very complex conversation because eye surgery itself is very complex. And then you start getting into the technology behind it. It becomes even more complex. As far as the physicians are concerned, they're all really excited about using this. I get text messages and emails daily about how and when can I start using this product in my OR. And one of the things I was helping, develop out was a company called Stitch. It was made by George Arroyo. He's a Harvard-trained ophthalmologist. He created a broadcasting service where you could actually live stream from the Ingenuity in 2D out so people could join you for kind of live surgery. And that was the first time I realized that the four walls of the OR are not static. This is a very dynamic process. And it was really eye-opening, compliments of Dr. Arroyo, to envision a different future that where we could be more collaborative, where we can train medical students, where we can even train the industry partners who come in, who teach us how to do things. We can actually teach them how to do it better to train other surgeons when they're boots on the ground for those other doctors. What that did was open up my eyes, open up our eyes as to we can really blow the walls off the OR, and we can really make this a collaborative approach to patient care. We can bring them what is the best that exists in this world, no matter what physical footprint you have. And democratizing care across the world is huge. There's plenty of areas that have no access to experts, to subspecialists. We're so fortunate here in the United States. We're so fortunate here in New York, where we have such quality that exists. Everybody has their own niche and doing their own thing, but being able to blow the walls off the OR anywhere in the world, I mean, I think that's huge.
Michael, I'm curious. I know you've got a lot of experience on the development side. Just curious, maybe what stood out to you, or what's been maybe surprising or gone differently than what you expected?
The thing that's interesting for me is I was already, and I repeated it and I'll repeat it a lot. In fact, my friends make fun of me, like my Apple friends, because I'm really a fanboy of the Vision Pro. Like, I get it. I am there. All these rumors about it getting canceled and it's useless and this and that. I don't believe any of them. Now, I don't know what Apple's going to do, right? Who knows what Apple's going to do? I don't think they're discontinuing it. I think all those rumors are fake. I think the product is the future. So the reason why I'm giving you this whole build up to I'm really, really, really a fan of the Apple Vision Pro is I already loved it from my other apps. The difference with ScopeXR is those apps are productivity apps. Okay, if there's a game or this or that or whatever, entertainment, you're watching a movie, this or that, there's a feeling of almost fun with the Apple Vision Pro. It's almost whimsical or almost, a dream. He mentioned Stitch earlier. We actually have Stitch built into ScopeXR, so you can watch those surgeries in ScopeXR, and maybe you can use it as a reference tool. The point, though, is what I would say it's a happy surprise in that I've never felt more productive, where the Apple Vision Pro enables something that literally was impossible without the Apple Vision Pro. This is just not possible without an Apple Vision Pro, whereas Fantastical can exist on a Mac or an iPad or an iPhone or an Apple Watch or whatever. What was really surprising and what I'm the most delighted about, and I think everyone else will be, is this is truly a use case for the Vision Pro that cannot be done on anything else. And the only other thing I just want to add to that really quickly is just what you were saying earlier is a really, really amazing point. We've never really harped on it, but I'm going to harp on it now, which is the touch-free aspect of it. The only thing you have to touch is your Vision Pro. So if that's clean, once you put it on, everything you move and maneuver and look at and touch and pinch and right, your hands are literally clean. You don't have to touch a thing. It's touchless. And I think that's another aspect of the Apple Vision Pro with ScopeXR is it's a touchless, augmented, bionic, plus experience for the surgeon and the patient. And that's really impressive for me.
I love the caveat you threw out there. As long as your Vision Pro is clean, you'll be good. I've seen some Vision Pros out there, but
exactly. That's why I threw it out there. You gotta
ours
have
are
it
always
clean. You
clean.
gotta have it clean.
Always have it
It's like
clean.
in your
Yep, that's right.
dentist's office, they'll start having plastic on it or whatever, and then you'll pull the plastic off.
So fully agree with you. Of course, anyone watching this show knows I'm a huge fan of Vision Pro, and I do think it unlocks so many things. And I get asked this a lot with all the rumors and stuff going on lately. And for me, the way I view it is we've got a lot of our lives now that are inside a digital box. They're stuck in our phones. They're stuck in our laptops. I, for one, want to see a future where we're not stuck on a tiny rectangle screen that we're looking at and having to hold all day long. Having those in a glass form factor, whatever these end up being like, there's no better way to blend our digital with our physical. So that's why I'm a huge believer in all this. I don't know what Apple's going to do a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But I do know that we continue to put more and more of our lives into this digital world. And we also care about our physical world. And that's got to blend. And the best way to blend that is with a headset, with glasses or goggles or whatever it ends up being. Justin, I'd love to get your take, maybe less on the surgery side, but just spatial computing in general. Like, what excites you about this space and where do you see it going next?
Man, it's just a whole new frontier. This is really what the future looks like for everything. And once you see it, I was a day one Vision Pro, just like I was a day one iPhone. And these are the new user interface paradigms for us for the next decade that are going to be filtering out all over the place, also to iPhone, iPad, all across the platform. But we're able to see a little bit of the future in that headset. And we're also able to apply it to the present right now to solve a real world problem that exists that is going to catch on. Like you can't not have it once you've seen it in this respect. But the beautiful thing about it is also really the platform that is so accessible to so many people because it's built iOS, iPadOS, macOS. It's all built on that same foundation of privacy and security. So we can use that to keep our patient data secure. So it's really great synergy between what we're doing and what the platform offers. And if you look across the technology stack, it's like we have RealityKit, we have Metal. These things run on the Mac, they run on iOS. But without them, we could not have built. For ScopeXR, they're totally mandatory for doing everything that we needed. So it's like the pieces were there ready for us to build.
I did want to share with this team, there's a moment in my life that will always stick out. And I think it speaks to, sorry, I'm going to try and compose myself on this. I think it speaks to the work that you're all doing. My dad had a cataract surgery just a couple of years ago. He could barely see out of one of his eyes. And I still remember vividly the day that he called me. I was driving home from meetings. We talked about meetings today, but driving home from a meeting over in Portland. And the first thing he said to me when I picked up the phone was, "Justin, I could see again." And this is my dad who's got 20 plus grandkids. He was having difficulty just seeing them across the room.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, really, I know I speak for all of us. That was, thank you very much for sharing that.
And that's
Work-
why we do this. I mean, those are the stories that make it, right? There's 20, 30 years of education that goes into going into ophthalmology. A lot of people still confuse us for the people who make glasses, which there's nothing wrong. They're doctors just the same as us. But the amount of dedication and study and time, and one story alone like that for any particular ophthalmologist is enough to carry them throughout their career. That will always be the case, but we are so fortunate to be in this field that we get that. If I'll return the favor. I have a patient of mine. She lived in Russia. She emigrated here at I think she was 25. All the surgeons abroad said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do." She had something called microphthalmia, which are tiny eyes, but she also developed cataracts with those tiny eyes. And they're like, "This is too tough of an eye. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do over there." And so she immigrated here with her 4-year-old daughter. Her vision was maybe 2300, not legal to drive, not able to see their grandkid, not legal to do anything. And we just incorporated the digital technologies that we had in the OR, and I was like, we can do this. We can absolutely do this. So we did her surgery. It was wildly successful, and she came back at maybe her 1-month post-operative visit, and there were tears in her eyes, and she's like, I can see my daughter's eyes for the first time. She noticed the color of her daughter's eyes. She noticed the leaves on the trees. It's why we do what we do. So thank you for sharing. It's always amazing.
I really appreciate you shared that, because that's what I was saying from the beginning. There's a human side to technology. And no matter what, we use apps, we use phones, we use this, we use that. I really love that someone like Eric, who's dedicated his whole life to making people's lives better, can have tools that can make people's lives better. Justin, Eric, and myself always think about the fact that, again, we want patient care. So for someone like your dad who had this incredible outcome, his doctor clearly had the same sort of idea to make someone's life better, and it changed his life for the better. And I really appreciate you sharing that story. I'm going to remember that forever.
We're all blessed to be in this day and age. I always talk about how cool it is to live in this era for Vision Pro. It's also really cool to live in this era for healthcare, and things that we have the ability to have done now didn't even exist, a couple decades ago. And so it's pretty awesome. And, Eric, we're lucky to have people like you in this world that make this possible for people like my dad. And Michael and Justin, don't sell yourself short. Developers are incredible people, and they too go through a lot of training and education and a lot of back and forth and refinement to build something that's beautiful and works, that people want to use. So don't sell yourself short. I love developers. I love physicians that are doing things with the right heart. And so for those reasons, that's the reason I really wanted to have you all on the show today to dive into this more. And so thank you, the three of you, for joining here today. And if you liked today's video, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll have more awesome interviews and discussions moving forward here around this whole entire ecosystem. But before we split here, I'm just curious if any of you have something that you'd like to share that we didn't have a chance to share beforehand?
With this, I think it's important, and I think we've all identified this, and it is very important that nobody sells themselves short, including yourself, Justin. We all play a part in all of this. The important thing is not to sell ourselves short. Gone are the days for doctors and surgeons bending a piece of metal and then naming it after themselves. Those days are long over. The future of medicine is collaborative. It's interdisciplinary. My background is actually in engineering. I went to undergrad and grad school in engineering, and I thought to myself, this is going to be very valuable as we move forward in the world to be able to integrate some of these sciences. But even so, when I talk to people like Justin and Michael, I feel like one of those brain dead monkeys with a tambourine. That's how far these fields have gone, even though I have a background in it. It's just, so the long story short is that the future of medical care in the United States and the world is collaborative. It's going to be us working together to create these solutions that otherwise would be impossible to exist. The goal is not to make surgery look futuristic. The goal, like Justin keeps saying, is to elevate the standard of care. It's to make it better. And the only way that's happening is with a team like this. Justin, your node in this is just as important as any of ours. The people who follow your content that understand that this is going to be a huge play, a huge product going forward in the future. It's important to be able to have everybody be able to access this information. It's all these pieces that just come together so naturally and fortuitously that when it just does that, it's right. It's not one of those things that you force to make it happen. It's just, it's there.
I appreciate that. What about you, Michael?
Not much. I mean, I really mean your story kind of put me in a different perspective of who we're building for. And, I've obviously seen surgeries, talked with Eric. I know our product is for people, but, the fact that your father had such an incredible outcome and we can even improve those outcomes further with our app. I'm going to take that forward with me. But in general, I just want to say, what we're really trying to build is to take the Vision Pro and make the world a little bit of a better place for patients and surgeons alike. And hopefully that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Michael. And Justin, we'll close with you.
Yeah, I would say it's an amazing time to be alive. The fact that we can use the same tools we use to build a video game or an app, that we can help give someone back their vision is just an amazing power. And we have an obligation to use that to make the world a better place.
Well, thank you all for joining today. It's been my pleasure just being here with all of you today. So I'm sure we'll have more to talk about in the future. So hopefully you'll all come back to the show.
Yeah. About a month from now, there's going to be a lot of new stuff to talk about.
It'll be a privilege.
Right. Yeah. For those watching this, WWDC is in about 800 hours from now, something like that. Super excited about Dub this year and Vision OS 27 and what that might bring to all of us. But we'll make sure to bring the team back together after Dub and have some more to talk about in this space. So thank you all.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, it was my pleasure to have them here with us, and they are getting a lot of attention, and deservedly so right now. This is a very exciting space, and to their points in this conversation, all tying it back to the patient and delivering some better care and hopefully making our physicians' life a little easier than they were before as well. Thank you again for watching today, and until next time, stay spatial.
Stay spatial.
All right, y'all. You got to be part of